Hey there. So it's October 1st right now, 2020, and this year has been pretty crazy. Obviously COVID has had a huge impact on people's ability to train and has kind of decimated any possibility of racing for the current time. And at least right now, there's also like crazy fires here in California and the smoke is terrible. I mean, I can look outside right now and just like stare at the sun because there's so much smoke in the air. But fortunately, I'm extremely grateful that my partner and I were able to move into a house this year, and so now I have a little bit of space in the basement, and I've made a ton of use out of that over the last month and a half since the fires started, and the fire season started kind of early this year. So, you know, it's really tough to get outside and train. I think over the last 6 weeks, I've maybe gone out for a couple of rides out on the road, and most of my training has been, you know, strength work and core work inside. I've done plenty of indoor rides, and I'm probably going to do another one later tonight. But, you know, as much as I love doing higher mileage training and I love doing longer training rides that are, you know, out on the road like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours long, that's just not going to happen right now. And so, you know, as much as I would love to be attached to an existence where I can do those types of rides and I can ride 12, 15 hours a week, I just can't do that right now, partly because of the smoke, but also just because I have a lot going on with work and you know, personal obligations. So right now, I've kind of recalibrated what my intentions are for my training at the present moment. And basically I've taken the approach that, you know, there's no race, there's no event that I'm gonna train for in the next like month or two. And, you know, even though I had really good aerobic fitness earlier in this year and was able to achieve one of my, you know, short-term targets of setting a new KOM on tunnel near where I used to live in Berkeley. Now I'm just like slightly over the hill in Martinez. Anyway, I really wanted to see if I couldn't, you know, recalibrate my intentions for my training and be focused, but to have a long view and to get ready for whatever my goals might be for next year. So I'm kind of basically just starting, you know, my foundational training early this year. It's October 1st. I mean, normally I would still be riding higher volume and having fun doing that. But right now I'm going to focus on building strength and aerobic conditioning. And when the air is good, I'll work on endurance as much as I'm able to based on the time that I have available, depending on my work and personal obligations. But, you know, right now at least, I'm gonna do a short strength and core workout inside while I have the time. And then afterwards, like I said, I have a lot of work, so I'm gonna work. And if I can make time, I'm gonna go for a short ride indoors this evening. And so, I don't know, I just wanted to like offer some thoughts on how I'm handling a very challenging year, and also in this moment, a very challenging situation with the air quality that we have in the Bay Area. And while I'm at it, it's come up a number of times recently with a few of my clients about what kind of home gym setup they might, you know, create if they wanted to spend more time focusing on building strength over the next several months to get ready for next year. And so, yeah, I was just gonna go show you what my setup is like and offer some thoughts on how you can try to make the most of training inside. Okay, so like I said, I'm extremely fortunate to be able to have a basement where I can set up a little space to work so I don't bother people upstairs, and a little bit of bike parking, obviously. I'm so excited that I can have my bike set up on the trainer. So if it's winter and it's cold and it's wet and it's raining, I'm just gonna do what I've always dreamed of, and just have my bike set up here ready to go so I can just throw on a kit and some shoes and ride and just do the most that I can to reduce friction getting from, you know, whatever I'm doing during the day to getting on my bike. And I think that's a huge tip just for anyone in general. It's always good if you can reduce friction in your training so you can, you know, get out the door and get your training in as easily as possible. So if you have to like move your trainer, set up your trainer, move your bike, set up your equipment, dig out your kits, dig out your cycling shoes, and they're all like packed away and hard to access, you know, if it takes you 5 minutes to get ready versus 15 minutes to get ready, that can make a huge impact on your ability to execute good training. And then I have a little carpeted area, which is good for doing core work on the ground. And recently I picked up this trap bar so I can do like deadlifts with it and build my build the strength of my posterior chain, which I think is fantastic. And in the past, I've had a gym membership and I've used the trap bar a lot. for me it's easier to work with than a regular bar and doing back squats. Personally, my back is like pretty flexible and I have trouble doing them effectively, or I can do them effectively, but it takes more effort and it's much easier to do more weight with a trap bar, which is basically what my goal is, to increase strength and neurological recruitment of motor units, and it translates better on the bike for me. I also have a kettlebell, which is useful for doing swings. And then I have a few dumbbells for doing, curls, presses, bent over rows. For the most part, most of my strength work is, on the floor doing core work and then doing some leg work. But I do also really want to focus on building the strength in my shoulder. And, as a cyclist, you don't necessarily want to have a lot of extra muscle mass. Like, muscle mass is only helpful up to a point. Like, if you can increase strength in a way that's useful to you, that's great. But past a certain point, if you're just carrying around extra weight, it's going to slow you down accelerating. It's going to slow you down going uphill. So if I could be, 165 and have good strength, I would rather do that than be 160 and be weak. But if I'm not going to increase in any useful way going from 165 to 170 because I put on an extra 5 pounds of muscle, I don't want to do that unless it's just, a personal goal of mine to be maybe generally fit and not specifically focus just on cycling. So that's another thing, like, be self-aware and do what is aligned with your goals and not just what some people might say you should do. And so I have I have my trap bar, kettlebell, a little bit of room on the floor for some core work, which is really key, some dumbbells, and then I used to have a pull-up bar. This is not really functioning as a pull-up bar here, and I may or may not set one up. It kind of sucks because my shoulder is messed up after breaking my arm a few years ago in a bike accident. But I do like having that bar here so I can use my suspension trainer and do various core exercises. So basically suspended planks and variations thereof, so that I can create instability and increase neurological recruitment so that it's tougher than just doing planks on the ground without any kind of instability there. And that's about it. I mean, usually all my core workouts are pretty straightforward. I just do some core work, and then depending on how sore I am, depending on what kind of riding I'm doing, I'll do some leg work, especially right now since I'm not able to ride outside very much. Like I said, I'm going to focus on aerobic conditioning and doing a lot of tempo work, some threshold work, definitely some stuff above threshold, but not very intensely and not very much. So there's a big difference between doing, let's say, 30 seconds at 500 watts for me versus doing 3 minutes at that power. It's a huge difference in the amount of effort that it takes to do it, and it's a huge difference in how it facilitates different outcomes in your training. So I would never want to go months and months without ever going above threshold, but during the winter I'll do a little bit of that to work on strength and power and leg speed, but I won't do huge anaerobic loads like I might if I was trying to get into peak shape for racing. And I'll focus more on 80 or 90% efforts, largely at threshold or below. And then coupled with that, I'm definitely going to focus on doing plenty of weight work to increase my strength so that when I transition to riding more outside, I'll have really good power. And I do personally find that naturally I'm not extremely strong. I don't have great neurological recruitment unless I work on it. So over the years, I've found that strength work is one of the most useful ways for me to get better through cross training. And I'll generally do much better if I'm doing some strength work once or twice a week for several months of the year than if I am just riding. Although I do love riding. If I was just doing it for fun, I might just ride. But if I'm trying to be the most successful at getting the best fitness that I can, I definitely personally find that strength work is pretty crucial for that for me. And then also, I'll point out, even though this is enclosed, I do have an air purifier in here because it's smoky outside and I turned it off for the sound, but I run that pretty much 30 to 60 minutes in advance of me coming down here. Anytime I'm working out, I run it whenever I'm on the trainer, getting a workout in, and I'm gonna turn it on in a second when I start doing some strength work, just because I wanna make sure that I'm exposing my lungs to as little particulate matter as I can so that I can hopefully reduce my risk of having a bad case of the flu or of COVID, and also just not damage them and fill them with crap that I don't want in there. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna do some work, and that's it.
Okay, one thing I wanted to point out was that in this particular workout, you might see that I'm doing some arm stuff, I'm doing some curls, and that's mostly because I feel much stronger when I do pretty full body workouts, and I don't just focus on my legs and my core. Basically, I'm just taking a long view that I'm not going to be doing anything that's really going to be even attempting to be in peak shape for at least, I guess, 6 months maybe, probably at least until April. I don't see myself being in top aerobic shape or having any possible events to go for. And I find that no matter what training I'm doing in the winter, I'm definitely not in shape to go after any KOMs in January or February or March. It's just too cold. I can't get the mileage in. It's impossible to do a lot of really high quality efforts. I find that it's just really much more helpful to have kind of moderate temperatures for all of those really intense aerobic capacity and threshold workouts. So right now, it's I don't mind if I put on an extra 2 or 3 pounds of muscle on my arms. It feels good for me to just be generally fit and strong and healthy all around. And it's definitely not helpful if and when I want to go out and do a hard effort up Wildcat, for example. But in the meantime, though, if I'm stronger and more powerful, and if I have a little bit more muscle mass and I'm able to do just physically more work, it creates a slight increase in the total load, the demand for cardiac output on my heart. And in my mind, if I can do anything to increase power and my capacity to produce power over the next 4, 5, 6 months, and then over the late winter and spring months, if I lay off of any kind of upper body strength work and I just do core work and leg work, I'll be able to hopefully lose a few pounds of body fat and maybe lose a few pounds of muscle. And that's basically what's happened multiple times over my experience as an athlete. There's been a few times over the years where I've spent more time at the gym and less time riding, and I wasn't focused on racing or doing any peak performances on my bike going uphill. But usually after a few months or several months of focusing just on high quality bike training, I can usually lose that, the last 3 or 4 pounds of body fat and muscle that might be keeping me from, setting a KOM on Claremont, for example. So, take a long view, know what your priorities are, and, whatever you do right now can set you up to do the workouts that you need that'll set you up for, whatever your goal is. You can't just think, oh, I want to go hard on my favorite 5-minute climb or 10-minute climb or hour-long climb, or I just want to be good at sprinting and only focus on that. you really want to build up all of the systems that are going to allow you to do the training that's going to allow you to do whatever peak performance you want to be doing. And so sometimes, over the next few weeks or a couple of months, doing more strength work and adding a few pounds of muscle is not going to help me go uphill faster. But if I do that and I can increase my total maximal aerobic output, my total power, even just a few watts, and then I can lose a few pounds of weight, I'll maybe be able to once again reach what I would regard as being peak fitness, and maybe have some fun going after some KOMs that I don't currently have, or maybe set some PRs on some climbs where I already have the KOM. That for me, that's something that's really intrinsically satisfying. And even if I wasn't one of the fastest people on some of those segments, just going out and setting PRs was something that I always loved as a runner, and it's something that I always loved early on in my cycling career before Strava even existed. I always loved going out and doing hill repeats and beating whatever it was that I was able to do a few months before or the last season. So it's really good to have things that you can shoot for and things that are kind of integrated into your process of training that help motivate you and help you to constantly be challenging yourself in an appropriate way that will help drive your fitness forward over time. Okay, so I've done a couple basic rounds of some of the core movements that I like to do, and I'm gonna maybe do one or two more sets of push-ups and crunches and stuff. But I don't have a ton of time today to do an epically long session, and I wanted to draw attention to just a couple of things. One is I think it's really common for us to think that we really need to go for it and have really big training sessions. If that's what we're used to, if we're used to riding an hour a day or 2 hours a day, every other day or whatever it is, or if we think in our head that we need to be doing half an hour of core work or half an hour of strength work or longer, sometimes doing 10 minutes of core work seems like a waste of time, or doing a 20 or 30 minute indoor trainer ride might seem like it's really not, gonna make a huge difference. It's not gonna really make a huge contribution to our future fitness, or in times like this where it's kind of stressful and there's a lot going on in the world, and we might sometimes be not feeling too optimistic about things, or just feeling kind of lousy, especially if we're stuck inside because of the smoke and because of COVID and being mostly at home all the time. I wouldn't ever undervalue or underestimate the value of what a positive impact some exercise or some meditation or a little bit of extra sleep or doing some creative thing that you love to do can have on our experience of life and our sense of well-being and our mental emotional fitness. And so definitely sometimes I feel like it's hard to squeeze in even just a 20 or 30 minute ride or 15 minutes of strength work or whatever it is, but I know from experience almost always doing something most every day is, for me at least, really helpful. And even if it's hard to get in 15 or 20 minutes sometimes, let alone a couple hours like I would love to do, I find that when I do it more consistently, I always feel so much better in the long run. And so sometimes just set the bar low. If you just have 10 minutes to do some core work, or you just can go for a jog around the neighborhood real quick before you have to shower and go to work or start your day. Definitely, take some action over no action. And then also specifically on, the strength work that I was doing, I'm always trying to be pretty pragmatic, and I'm not trying to overspend and get, you know, the nicest bike that I could possibly have or the most prolific set of gym equipment that I could have. I mostly try to be selective about getting something that is affordable for me and has a high use value for me. And so in this case, like, you know, maybe I could have some heavier weights, but, you know, heavier weights are helpful, but you really want to just work on increasing strength and neurological recruitment and power. And in a situation where you can't go to the gym and you don't have really extensive gym equipment at home or what have you, you know, focusing on doing good movements, like having good form, doing them in a controlled fashion, and then doing them quickly can be a great way to increase the demand on your muscles to contract with a high degree of force. So for example, you know, doing push-ups, doing them very powerfully and quickly can create as much like maximal contraction as lifting a much heavier weight. Or if you're doing, you know, body weight squats, you could transition to doing them a little bit more powerfully and a little bit quicker on the concentric part of the motion. So when you're standing up from the squat position, or you could transition to doing squat jumps or plyometric jumps where you like jump onto a bench or a table. And the speed with which you do movements exponentially increases the amount of force that you have to generate with your muscles. So generally, like, whatever equipment you have, try to make the most of it. And for example, if I'm doing like trap bar deadlifts, if I feel like I'm getting to a point where the weight is not challenging enough, instead of going out and buying more weights, I might just focus on going down in a controlled fashion and trying to spring up kind of quickly. Still very controlled and still trying to minimize my chance of getting hurt and getting injured, but doing your contractions in a very quick way will be one of the most effective ways that you can increase neurological recruitment and power that will translate into better performance on the bike or better performance running. And I think that's about it. I'm gonna, you know, finish up a few moves before I go back and do some work, and hopefully can get in a bit of a ride tonight. That's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.